So on top of Chav Dalet, Amar Aleph, the top line. It's an easy place to start. Top line. Amar Rabbi Shia. Rabbi Shia says, okay, let me just compare, just to go back. We had a statement before from Rabbi Ami. We learned this yesterday. Rabbi Ami said that if someone designates 2 bundles of money for a carbon, so he can use either one to buy his carbon, and the second one is in the dava. We said that, well, according to the Rabbanan, of course, that's obvious. According to Rabbi, that also seems to be obvious, because Rabbi held that if the kapara, that if you separated a carbon, Rabbi held that if you separated a carbon and you lost it, then you separate another one, and you find the first one, even though you found it before the atonement, but it's still put to death. But over here, when he separates 2 bundles of money, over here he didn't separate it because it was lost. He separated just l'achrayas. So the second one is in the dava. Rabbi would agree with that. He said the chiddush was according to Reb Shimon, where Reb Shimon held that normally we don't say that there's such a thing as a nedava. So over here we say that there is such a concept. There's an extra one. Oh, that's what we said. We could have thought. Then we asked, but really, according to Reb Shimon, there's no nedava. We have gemaras all about the shayfras. There's nedavas over there. So we said, yeah, that's because that was extra money from one donation, because the price went down. But one designation. But over here you had 2 designations. Maybe Reb Shimon wouldn't say there's a nedava. Kamash Malan Rabami that there is nedava. Now Rabbi Shia starts. It says, Hamafir shtei chatois lachrayas. Someone designates 2 chatois. Yesterday we learned about designating 2 bundles of money. Now it's 2 animals. And one of them is going to be the carbon. The other one is just to guarantee, to make sure that he has it when he needs it. So, miskaper bachas mihem, you get atonement from one of them. There's no difference which one, because he designated both of them equally. It's not like one and then another one. V'chaverta roya. And the second one can graze and get a mum, and when it gets a mum, then you'll sell it for a chatas or whatever the animal was, and someone else will bring it, and that money will be chulin.
Like a backup?
Yeah, a backup. A backup. Thank you. Beautiful. Ali b'deman. Now we're asking, according to Rabbi Shia, we have so many opinions here. We have Rabbi's opinion about it being put to animals being put to death. We have the Rabbanan. We learned already Reb Shimon. Now we're asking, who is the chiddush of Rabbi Shia? Who is this going according to? Eily mali b'de Rabbanan. If there's a chiddush over here according to the Rabbanan that said many times that the animal can graze, hashta hamafresh liibud. If someone designates an animal for a carbon, why? Because he lost his first animal. So what do the Rabbanan say? Amri Rabbanan lav ki ibadami, that it's not considered like an animal that's designated for it to be lost, and it's raya, and you let it graze. Lachrayas mi bai. So I need Rabbi Shia to tell me that according to the Rabbanan, if he designates 2 bundles of money, that he lets it graze, even if he designated the second one because the first one was lost. The second one can graze.
Yeah. Rab Hoshea, is he one of the editors of the Bais?
I think so.
So when he's brought down by name, is this just his opinion, or is he bringing down
a
a
good question.
Bais?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. No, one second. Rabbi Shia is the editor of the Bais, and I think Rabbi Shia is a student of Rav.
Different
He's
person?
not on the chart.
Different person.
He's not on the chart. No, you could Google Dr. Stein.
Yes.
You know, you can Google the Tanaim and Amoraim. You know that.
No,
Yeah.
in Hebrew.
Do you have Hebrew?
Yeah, I have.
You do have. So if you type in Rab Hoshea
1 second.
with the ayin,
Well, here it's
Vav
spelled
Shin
with an
Ayin.
olive. Here it's in the Gemara. It's spelled
it's
with
with the hay, right?
Okay.
If I'm not
Different
mistaken,
person.
he's a student of Rav.
Oh, what happened with Jeff?
This is
No, this
Moshe
is
Zan.
Moshe drawing.
Oh, let me call Jeff. Oh, here it is. Jeff? I just asked what happened to you. Okay, we're learning 20. 4,
8 1.
A1 somewhere.
Okay, so what we just said was that Rabbi needs to tell me a chiddush according to the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say even more than what Rabbi is saying. So we're on top of 24. So we said Ela Ali b'der Reb Shimon. It must be according to Reb Shimon. Now Reb Shimon had an extreme opinion. He held that there's 5 chatas that are put to death, and there's no exceptions about that. Whenever there's a kapara that's brought, one of those 5 was when the owner was atoned for. And so here, look what's going to happen. You're only going to be able to bring one as a chatas for the owner. So there's going to be an atonement. The owners were atoned for. The second one is put to death. Shekipur baleh, chatas shekipur baleh. The owner was atoned for. So then it's put to death. So Ela Ali b'der Reb Shimon. It's a chiddush according to Reb Shimon. And it was supposed to be, what's that, Gimel? The Gemara asks, 1 second. V'amar Reb Shimon, chamesh chatayis meses. It can't be according to Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon won't agree with this. He's going to say that it's, and we're trying to get a chiddush according to Reb Shimon. Yeah, it's too much of a chiddush. He doesn't accept it. It's Ela Ali b'der Rabbi. It must be according to Rabbi. Rabbi had a middle opinion. That ki amar Rabbi be'ibud. When did Rabbi say that it's put to death? That's only if you designated the animal because the first one was lost. Aval achrayas lai. But if you designate it as a guarantee, just to be more responsible, then it's not put to death, even though the atonement is brought. It's the second one it can graze and you can use the money. Okay. Tanan, we have a Mishnah. This Mishnah is the end of the Mishnah that we learned on Shabbos, and we didn't discuss this upstairs. We discussed this when we learned on Shabbos, but the end of the Mishnah goes like this. It says, Hamafresh chatas. Someone separates a chatas, he designates a chatas, Barei balas mum, and then it gets a blemish. Okay, that can happen. So meichra, so you sell that one. It's like a redemption. Maybe a cheres tachta, and then you bring another animal. You use the money. You can buy another animal without a mum, and you're good to go. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon Aimer. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon says 1 second. Im karva shniya kaidem shenishchata rishayna. Let's say the buyer, the purchaser of your blemished animal. There's a market for the bruised karbanos. So this guy that bought the bruised karban, let's say for himself, it's he's supposed to shecht it and eat it. He can't do work with it. It's psulei hamikdashim. There's certain laws, but he can still eat it in his house. So the meat is good to eat. So if the sacrifice was brought, if this purchaser didn't have his act together, he didn't shecht it immediately, and the guy that was bringing the karban did have his act together, he brought the karban immediately. So then what's going to happen is, once the karban is brought, it goes, that atonement pushes away the animal that was sold, and it has to be put to death. Because the mum animal has to be put to death. Why?
Wow, what a bummer.
Yeah. So he should get his money back.
Yeah.
So, Thomas, why? Shekvar Kippur Bala, because the owner was atoned for. Very interesting. That's Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. It's not Rabbi Elazar, it's Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. It's Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai's son. Did you find the Rabbi anywhere?
Yeah.
Is he a student of Rav?
I couldn't look it up because
Your phone's it. Uh-huh.
Is that too small?
No. Oh, okay. This is great. I didn't know that he's in English. JD, I knew hasn't seen his Palestinian first Amorite generation. No, this is coming. Oh, you're right. This is Reb Hoshia Rabbah. Is there another Reb Hoshia? I don't know if this is. Yeah, this is the Reb Hoshia Rabbah, which I believe is Reb Hoshia. Does it give you options? Also, this is, I didn't know they did his thing in English. Yeah, this is Rabbi Shia, though. They're calling him Rabbi Shia because in the Talmud Yerushalmi it's called Rabbi Shia. Okay, we'll check it out. That's the Jewish Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
But the article they took from Eisenstein. Remember those old encyclopedias?
I was
Eily
just thinking.
Yisrael? Okay. So, Kasal Kadaitach. The Gemara thinks the Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon Rebbe Svirale. That Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds like Rebbe. And what does this tell me? Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds like Rebbe, that he says that if you designate an animal, Rebbe holds that if you designate an animal because one got lost, so then the next day, then if the atonement was brought, then it's put to death. Okay. So, Bafilu Bachrayas Nami, and he holds that even if you designate an animal for achrayas, see what happened here. Here he was mafreshit for a mum because of a mum. He designated one, then he designated a second one because the first one had a mum, had a blemish. What would happen if he would designate both of them at the same time? And one of them would be for an atonement. One of them would be for guarantee, for just to be more responsible. Designated two because to be for achrayas. So then when the first one was brought, the second one would have to be put to death because Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds that that the purchaser of the second animal or whatever, he can't use it after the atonement was brought. So the Gemara says no, he doesn't hold like Rabbi. That's not Rabbi's opinion. In other words, this would be a question on Rabbi Shia, because Rabbi Shia says that the second animal of an achrayas pair is roya. We said, who's the chiddush according to? The chiddush was according to Rabbi. Rabbi only says that you have to put the second one to death. That's only if you designate it because the first one was lost. But if it was designated for achrayas, you don't have to put it to death. So now we're saying, 1 second, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon probably holds like Rabbi, and he holds that you have to put the second one to death. So he says no, he doesn't hold like Rabbi. We say, Loi, Dilma Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon kavuas really. He holds like his father. Who's the father of Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon? Reb Shimon. Shimon bar Yochai.
White horse.
Softball question.
So, the Amar Chamish Chatayis Meses. His father holds that all five are put to death no matter what. And once the atonement's brought, so then the other animal needs to be put to death. So that's what Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon is saying over here as well. Once the atonement's brought, then the other one needs to be put to death. So that's why if you would sell the first one, you would have to shech that first one before the atonement is brought. You'd have to work it out with the purchaser. You shech it then, I'll bring my carbon then. Designate the times.
Why doesn't anyone stretch the, if it's got to be put to death, so shech them both? Guess what? The other one was also put to death.
We're going to see in a minute that there's an opinion that even if it's in the pot, cooking, and the other one is brought, the meat in the pot needs to be destroyed. We're going to see that soon. So yeah, so it needs to be already consumed. We're going to see that soon. Tanan. We learned in a Mishnah, and we quoted this Mishnah. This is like our third time or fourth time quoting this Mishnah. It says, it's a Mishnah in Yoma. It says, Lepi shein chatas tzibur mesa, had the yachid mesa. What happened over there was, you had the two goats for Yom Kippur. One of them is supposed to go to Azazel, it's thrown off the cliff. The other one is brought as a sacrifice. The one that's supposed to be thrown off the cliff dies. So you have to designate a new pair. So when you designate the new pair, so I'm left with one extra animal. Yeah. So we learned that you bring the first one, and the second one is you bring the remaining one from the first group, the survivor. you bring the survivor, and then the remaining one can graze. We said, why can it graze? Because it's a community offering. That would mean that if it was a private offering, it would have to be put to death. So we're assuming that extra one is considered like achrayas, and that's what we're looking at here. Oh, you have to put it to death. That's going to be a question on what we're learning. So it says Tanan, so what's the reason why you let it graze? That's because it's a community offering, and a community offering doesn't have to be put to death. But if it would be a private offering, it would be put mesa, it would be put to death. Rav, it's supposed to say. And Rav said, it's because living animals are not rejected. So therefore, when you bring the atonement animal, in other words, one of them is a sacrifice, you bring the survivor, you bring the second one of the first group, means the survivor. V'idach, the remaining animal that's from the new group, havalei achrayas. That was there hanging around just because it's what is it called? Insurance, a guarantee, to be responsible. Uktani diachin mesa. You see that achrayas is put to death when it's by an individual. The Gemara answers, this is Rav l'tamei. This is Rav according to his reasoning. Damer mitzvah b'rishon. There's a lot of Gemaras that are getting thrown in here without any background. What happened was, if someone designates a carbon pesach, but he loses it, so then he designates another one, but then he finds the first one. So the Mishnah says that you don't have to bring the first one. You could bring the second one also. But Rabbi Yosi held that you have to bring the first one that you designated. You pick that one first. That's the one that's the carbon. So what happens with the other ones? So Rav holds like Rabbi Yosi. So therefore, because there's a designation of which animal needs to be brought, then that's saying that the second one is considered like rejected. So it goes like this. Rav holds like Rabbi Yosi damar mitzvah berishin. So that's why this is a special opinion, according to Rav, according to Rabbi Yosi, that the second one would be rejected. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yosi, yes, it's true that if there's an achrayas, the second one is rejected because there's a designation of which one, as one of them has a superiority over the other one, and that pushes off the other one. But if you don't go like Rabbi Yosi, then you don't have that issue, and they're both equal, and the second one isn't put to death. So notice the way we're answering this is we're saying that this is going according to Rabbi Yosi's opinion. That's not what we were discussing.
If a man marries a woman and she gets lost, he thinks she's lost, and they marry somebody else, and then the first one appears, do you sacrifice the second one?
In
You wouldn't have
your
to.
dreams.
You'd be dead.
In
The
your
first one
dreams.
would kill you.
Okay.
Shimon.
Tani Rav Simi Bar Ziri, Kamid Rav Papa. Rav Papa is a student of Rava, down towards the bottom. And Rav Simi Bar Ziri is not on the charts.
No.
Couldn't play good music.
So he says like this: he's teaching this in front of Rav Papa. It's an interesting Gemara that this is just the fact that this is in here is interesting. He says like this: of the B'shas Afrasha, Rebbe Mesa, Rabbanan Tera. It's rather obvious. So don't get confused. Like this is more complicated than you think it is. It's not. It's very simple. If the animal gets lost, and it is lost at the time of designating the new one. So, notice you had an animal for a sacrifice, you lost it, you designated a new one, and then you find the one that you lost. So we learned that L'Rebbe Mesa, according to Rebbe, you put the first animal to death, and according to the Rabbanan Tera, you let it graze. Of the B'shas Kapara, let's say it was lost for more than that. You lost the first one and it's really lost. You designate a new one. You bring the new one as a sacrifice. Then you find the old one. It wasn't really lost. You thought it was really lost. So then, even L'Rabbanan Mesa, according to the Rabbanan, it's also put to death because that was rejected at the time of the Kapara. But he adds in, he says, L'Rebbe Raya, according to Rebbe, you let it graze. Now, this is very shocking. The Gemara says, Kal v'chaymer, 1 second. If it's only lost at the time of designating the second one, the rabbis say that you let it graze. And nevertheless, Amar Rabbi Mesa, the Rabbi says that it's put to death, even though it was just lost temporarily while you designated the new one. But Avuda b'shas kapara, if it's lost at the time of atonement, which even the Rabbanan Mesa, that according to the rabbis it's put to death, and they usually say that you let it graze. The Rabbi, like Kolshkein, is it not a kal v'chaimer that according to Rabbi it's put to death? It's put to death even by b'shas hafrasha. Here it's lost for even longer. Follow? Elatani hachi. Rather read it a little different. Avuda, or teach it differently. Avuda b'shas hafrasha, if it's lost at the time of designating the new one, the Rebbe Mesa or Rabbanan Raya, b'shas kapara de'brekal Mesa. If it's lost at the time of the kapara, everyone agrees that it's put to death. That was an easy Gemara. It's just summarizing the machlaikas. Okay, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon says that you need to shech the bought animal, the one that had the mum, before the carbon is brought, or else you're going to have to put it to death after the carbon is brought. Temurah Daf, the rabbis taught in a Bais. Ein margilin b'yamtiv, ki yitzibay ein margilin b'bechar v'blay p'sulei ha'mekdashim. Margilin, I may not be reading the vowels correct. Margilin, that is correct. Margilin means you can't skin the animal from the feet. Now, it seemed like this was difficult to do, but there was a benefit in that, because when you would skin the animal from the feet, you were able to keep the whole skin intact, and then you could sew it easily to make it into a bag for water. So this was a difficult job, and on Yom Tif you weren't supposed to do this. So yeah, he's wearing it on his back in this picture.
Ooh.
Do they have such a
Nice
thing
bag.
do they have things for hikers, like a
Nice
vest or
backpack.
something that you could fill up with water? With this, I think I've seen something with
Yeah,
a straw
yeah.
that comes out. So they
It's for the camel.
right. Is that what it's really called?
Yeah, they call it the camel. Yeah, it's a tube and goes
Because
into your back.
this is the old
Yeah, that's
the
your
old version.
Yeah.
We
Let's
covered
look
this
it
in
up.
cool.
Yeah, we had that
The
before.
water must taste so good.
So what do they have? They sell all these waters, fancy waters in Whole Foods. Black water, you see there's a black
Smart
water.
Stupid
Smart water, yeah. This is smart water.
Stupid water.
So so on Yom Tif you're not allowed to skin the animal like this.
Oh.
That makes sense. It's probably a big job. We're going to see. Maybe it's too much of a tircha for Yom Tif. Yom Tif, you're shechting for the meat. You know, this is like on Shabbos, you clear the table, you have dishes. So this is like loading the dishwasher on Shabbos, which possibly you may be allowed to do, but if that you have to put it down somewhere, so you put it in the dishwasher. Here, he's trying to get a little bit extra of something that he doesn't really need for Yom Tif. He doesn't need for Yom Tif. He needs for Yom Tif the meat. He's trying to get, while I'm at it, let me skin the animal in a way that I'll be able to turn it for after Yom Tif into a sack that I'll be able to use for water, a water bag. That you're not allowed to do. It's too much effort. And then
Here it says, not only because it was too much effort, it says that Rashba explains that the reason for the prohibition that one removes the hide in this manner intends to create a keli, which is usher on Yom Tov.
oh, interesting,
Oh.
interesting.
You had that with taking a cup of, remember? Top off a wine bottle.
Right.
It creates
Oh, yeah.
kidney.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. It's a chiddush. The Gemara doesn't mention that. Now, at least over here. Now, what about the bechar? You're not allowed to do this to a bechar. You're not allowed to do this to a psulei ha'mekdashim, to a sacrifice that has a mum. So Gemara says like this: Bishlei b'yom tif. We understand the din of yom tif. The katarach tircha d'lei chazilei. He's doing an extra bother that's not appropriate for right now. Maybe because of the keli, like you mentioned, or because it's just a tircha. It's too much effort for yom tif. Al bechar mantana. But who says that you're not allowed to do this to a bechar? Amar Rav Chisda Beis Shammai. Rav Chisda says it's Beis Shammai. The Amar bechar b'kedusha sekai. Beis Shammai says that a bechar stays holy. the Tanan, it was taught in the Mishnah. Yimni Yisrael Makayan al Bechar. Now, when a Bechar gets a mum, so it goes to the Kayan, and the Kayan shechs it at home and he eats it at home. Now, Beis Shammai holds that Yisrael is not supposed to eat that Bechar together with the Kayan, even though the Kayan is eating it at home, but it has a holiness that means that it's for Kayanim, it's not for Yisrael. Oh, it has that holiness, so that means that I'm not supposed to do other work with it, even though it has a mum. What's the other work? To skin it in a way that you're going to use the hide that's considered work. You're not supposed to do that sort of work with it. It's not really work. You're not working the animal, but you weren't supposed to shear the wool either of this animal. So this is like it's you're doing too much for a karban that has a mum. Psulim Mikdashim Antana. Who's the one that says Psulim Mikdashim? You're not allowed to skin the animal in this way. Amar Rav Chisda Rabbi Elazar bar Shimoni. Chisda says it's Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. The Tanya. It's on in the Bais Eily under shtei chatois. Someone has two chatois. Achas tmim v'achas balas mum. One of them is perfect, and one has a blemish. Tmima tikra, balas mum tifta. The one that's perfect you offer up, and the one that has the mum you redeem. Nishchata balas mum ad shlein yizrak dama shel tmima. Look at this. Let's say the balas mum is shechted, and the blood of the perfect one wasn't sprinkled yet, then good. Muteres. Mishin nizrak dama shel tmima. Once the blood of the chatas is sprinkled, asura. You can't eat the second one, the one that had the mum. Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon Aimer afilu besar balas mum b'kdeira, even if the balas mum is in the pot already. V'nizrak dama shel tmima, and you sprinkle the blood, yoytze lebeis hasreifa, you have to take out the meat from the pot. So the first opinion held that it has to do with the shechita. Once it's shechted, you're okay. So the second opinion, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon holds, even if it's cooking already, dump out the chalent. Well, it wouldn't be brought on Shabbos, but it's... So what's the difference between a bacher and a balabas? A bacher starts eating chalent on Thursday night, and a balabas eats chalent until Thursday night. So, okay. So Rav Chisda told us each of these cases. The first case was Bechar was Beis Shammai. Psulei Mikdashim is Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon. The Gemara says, "V'look me'idi v'idi ke Beis Shammai." Why doesn't Rav Chisda say that they're both like Rabbi Beis Shammai, Bechar and Psulei Mikdashim? Because if Beis Shammai is machmer by a Bechar, for sure they should be machmer by Psulei Mikdashim, that it has to be eaten in a certain holiness. So the Gemara says, Dilma ki amri Beis Shammai beBechar. Maybe Beis Shammai is only strict by a Bechar. Why? The Kedusha Menachem, because the Bechar was holy from the womb. Ava Psulei Mikdashim loy, Psulei Mikdashim is Kadshim. It got consecrated, but it got a mum. But who consecrated it? Someone consecrated it later on. It wasn't born like that. Someone said this animal is going to be a sacrifice. So it was, verbally designated. So maybe they don't hold that you have to be so strict. The Gemara says, "Look me Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon." Maybe it should both. Why does he need to say this one goes like this opinion, that one goes like that opinion? Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon is machmer by Psulei Mikdashim, so by Bechar you should also be machmer. It says, "Dil makim Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon Psulei Mikdashim dalim lemitzvas pidyanan." Maybe Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon says that no, Psulei Mikdashim I have to keep holy. Why? Because a karban has such holiness in it that when I designate other money, when I exchange it with other money, that the holiness of the karban goes on the money. Because the karban had a mum. Now I say I'm going to redeem it. So I exchange it with the money. The holiness is powerful enough of the karban that it goes on to the money. So I would say, oh, that's a strong holiness. I have to keep that animal in a way that it's consecrated, and only a kohen is allowed to eat it. Other people aren't. Therefore, when you skin it, you can't skin it in the way you would skin other animal. So that's only by Psulei Mikdashim. Aval Bechar Lai. but Bechor doesn't get redeemed. Maybe Bechor has less of a holiness. So therefore, when you skin it, you don't have to skin it in such a specific way. Gemara says, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon, Leslei haditanan, Rabbi Elazar bar Shimon does not have this teaching that says, Kol psulei makdashim nishchatim bitlis, v'nekarim bitlis, v'nishkalim bitlitra, al makivan desharis leit, tafi v'zavin. Mishnah says like this, that an animal that was a korban that got a mum, so you try to sell it for the highest price. Why? Because the money is going to be used for a korban. Yeah? The money is going to be used for a korban. So you want to get the highest price. Because if you get a lower price, who's losing out? The Bais HaMikdash is losing out. So you want to sell it for the highest price. If we're going to allow you to skin it in this more beneficial way, where you'll be able to have more benefit from the skin, you'll be able to sell the animal for a higher price. So if we're ready to forego the sanctity of the sacrifice, to sell it in a way that will bring in more money, then we should forego the sanctity of the sacrifice, to sell it in a way that will bring in more money and allow it to be skinned in this way, they'll make money on that. Amar Rav Mari, Breder Rav Kana, Rav Mari, the son of Rav Kana says, you don't actually make more money on the entire animal. You make more money on the skin. But when you make more money on the skin, it causes defect in the flesh.
Whoa.